Hello, hello, hello. It's Chris Sandeman back again with another live stream for you guys. And we're still on Long Island, but we're in Brooklyn. Because Brooklyn is on Long Island, believe it or not. But if you were here yesterday, you know that. So welcome back. And if you weren't, welcome back anyway, because maybe you were here before then. And if you're new, go ahead and hit that like button, that thumbs up on your YouTube or on your Facebook. Give me a heart. Shout out, say a comment. All those wonderful things are great. Sorry for this being another pop-up and not being a planned, pre-planned stream. In fact, I planned to start about an hour ago. And I swear to God, I researched my butt off. And I got totally lost inside of this park. Because we are in Prospect Park right now. Hey, bye. Shalom, shalom. Manishma. Hey, Ross. What's going on, brother? Hello. Hello to Israel. Hello to Scotland. So welcome, guys. And welcome to Prospect Park. Welcome back to the U.S. on this live stream. You know, welcome back to Brooklyn. Welcome back to New York State, New York City, Long Island Island. And welcome specifically to Smorgasburg. Because although I had, hey Mila, hi, welcome. Welcome back. I had planned to start this live stream up from the Grand Army Plaza, which is the trumped up, much more fantastical entrance to Prospect Park than the original entrance that had been designed. And I was going to start up there and make my way down to where we are right now. But on my process of walking out the route to make sure that we were going to have good signal and good bandwidth, I got completely lost in the forest because there's 585 acres of forest in this, or 585 acres of park. Much of it is forest. In fact, the only natural, original remaining forest in all of Brooklyn is in this park. And I got lost in there for a little while and then noticed that it was just me and other guys that were in there. And there was lots of twisting turns and I was lost and confused. And then I just want to say thank you to gaymapper.com, which helped explain what was going on in the forest to me. I was going the wrong direction, basically. And the wrong direction for me, not the wrong direction for other people. Great direction for many people. Mwah. I love people choosing their own directions. Wasn't my direction though. And yeah, but gosh, those forests. So we started a little bit later than we wanted to, and now we're starting now here, where I was going to end, because this is where the food is. And I thought I'd come and eat after the live stream, but I'm going to eat after the live stream anyway. Just it's going to be in a different place. 585 acres of Prospect Park. Now, Prospect Park is split up into 3 different main sections, if you will. The park, which opens in 1867, is a park that's designed by 2 of our favorites, Frederick Law Olmsted and Calvert Vaux. Now, those are the same folks who did Central Park over on Manhattan, on the other side of the East River, on the island of Mannahatta, right? Central Park, Mannahatta, island of rolling hills. Us over here in Long Island, in Brooklyn, we get Prospect Park, but same architect and landscaper. So, and I reaching out on Twitch. No, we are in New York. We're in New York City. We are one of the 5 boroughs of New York City. We're in the borough of Brooklyn, or Brooklyn, as they would have called it back in the 1600s. But it was New Amsterdam, and this was New Netherlands. No, we're not in Texas. Sorry, Lone Star State. Ain't there. We're in New York State. We're in the Empire State. Excelsior! Right? Always upwards. Excelsior. Hi, Diana. Hello to California, Diana. Welcome. Asks, what do you have in New York? Oh, my goodness. We've got so many things in New York. We've got King Kong. We've got gigantic apples. We've got statues in the harbor. You know, New York. Lots of stuff. We've got 75% vaccination rates. We've got, even if you're vaccinated. New York's got a lot to offer. We'll have Broadway again in the fall. I mean, come on. New York's got a ton, including Smorgasburg. And let me show you Smorgasburg because we're here and we've taken 5 minutes just to say hi and get started, which is enough time for us to greet people and welcome folks in. And now for us to explore the food stall, which is actually not just one food stall. There are over 30 different food stalls here. Exactly, Ross writes, so good they named it twice. New York, New York. Exactly right. You know, the entire city was almost called Brooklyn. When they were bringing the 5 boroughs together, it was a sort of a race and a decision as to what we'd call the whole area. And Manhattan, you know, or New York Island, was just one of those potentials, ended up being the one. So, my Twitch friend asks, is it COVID safe? Well, who knows, right? We're all trying to figure out what's safe and what's not safe with COVID these days. But Smorgasburg is the largest outside food market in the United States of America. This one here in Prospect Park. It was a spin-off originally from Brooklyn Flea, which is like a flea market. You have another one over by the Oculus, another Smorgasburg over by the Oculus, which is by the World Trade Center Tower and One World Trade. Then you've got another one in Los Angeles now as well. You have pop-ups actually. Hi, Michaela. And I'll try to get some ice cream for you. I'll make it a good go of it. You've got another one also, like a pop-up. I believe there's a pop-up in Osaka, if that's correct. Oh, Sao Paulo in Brazil is where the pop-up is. And yeah, you know, this is the big one. New York Times called this the Woodstock of eating. So we can take a look, and I hope you guys are hungry. We've got some Thai fried chicken over here, looking delicious. I can tell you the smells are incredible. Right there, very, very tasty. This music right here is gonna blow me out of the water. So guys, if you're wondering over on YouTube, I'm sorry about this. There's nothing I can do. Lots of people playing music, and that's just the reality of it. So we're not gonna try to go for monetization or advertising here. This is a great this is Brooklyn's favorite fish fry we're looking at here. And they do these cones of fried anchovies, calamari, or Cajun popcorn shrimp. Just making one of them right there. Putting it together. Very yum. And you guys can see as we're walking along. Hi, Michelle. And Jenny, did I say thanks for the Purple Heart? I'm sorry if I missed that before. Let me just say it again. Thanks for the Purple Heart. Always good. I just want to show you guys how many people there are here. And it's completely normal that on a Sunday, the hours between 11 and 6 while Smorgasburg is open here in Prospect Park, you might have as many as 10,000 people come through and visit us and grab something to eat. Stalls. Not seeing a lot of masks, but I am seeing some masks. So happy about that. Over here, we've got the chocolate croissant bread pudding. Desserts. Very tasty. Hey, Eric. Aloha, brother. Aloha to Hawaii. And Jenny, thanks for the Purple Heart over on YouTube. I appreciate it very much. We've got like a kind of an elote style corn thing going on over here with some delicious kind of hibachi grilled shrimp. Ooh, just heard a little snap, crackle, and pop going on in the corn. Very delicious. Nice people here. Let's see what these guys got over here. It looks like they opted for some like Mexican sopas type of stuff. Thank you very much. Very delicious. Oh, not sopas. They went for one or the other. Maybe it's a borracha. You can see all the flautas over here getting done. This is nice that these guys leave all this food out to show us just kind of what it would look like. Oh, hi, puppy. I just got licks. I just got puppy licks. Look at these different, this is flautas over here. Hope I'm making you guys as hungry as I'm getting right now. Matthias, brother. Who does not love... Wait, was that a croissant or a shrimp that you've sent me that you love? I guess it was a croissant, but I know you love shrimp. Look at this place. These guys are doing bao buns, right? These delicious kind of baos. And what are they putting in it? All sorts of stuff. Look at her going at the Peking decoration, right? Kind of slicing out some of the duck yum yum right there. Oh wait, I can just actually come around the side. Let's see if this works for her. Now we can get the close view of it. Yum. Look how beautiful glazed that duck is. You can see the rest of this beautiful duck back here as they're preparing it as well. All this duck breast. The guy's doing the bows. Looks delicious. Let me get out of their way though and keep on wandering. Diana, I'm glad that my goal of making you hungry is successful. I tell you what, I'm suffering myself right now from hunger looking at all this delicious stuff. Okonomiyaki. These are these delicious pancakes that you'll often get in Japan. Seafood or vegetables. You can see that there's just an incredible variety of options of food here. We've got oysters and $22 for a lobster roll here. You might be saying to yourself, gosh, $22 seems like a lot of money for a lobster roll. But let me just tell you right now, that's a steal. You just do not get lobster rolls for $22. And so a $22 lobster roll, it's a great price for a lobster roll. Cannot argue. Probably because of the low overhead. Whoop. Let's see if I slide through real quick here. Here we've got some more tacos. Wagwan. They've got pork tacos, chicken tacos, heating up tortillas. And we're going to move a little faster now because there's a lot of history that I want to show you guys inside of the park as well. And it's not all just a promo for Smorgasburg here. Although, by the way, Smorgasburg, you know, maybe send me a pin. You could send me a high five, Smorgasburg. This music's loud. This is where the beer is. Longest line, as you can tell. Only place selling beer. Of course, it's got to be the big line. Shorter line. These guys do all sorts of duck. It's called duck season. And a shout out to our friends in Canada. They are doing a poutine and a royal poutine. And the royal poutine has chunks of duck. Dun dun dun. Shout out to Shannon and to Tage. When you guys watch this on playback later on, you get the Canadian poutine shout out. These guys have breakfast sandwiches that are selling out well. These guys are doing free cookie samples. Smart. It's a good way to get people to come in, check out cookies. And we are over halfway through. Hi, Rebecca. Welcome. Right, Ross? It feels like haggis gets shorted at this market. I mean, with all the other incredibly healthy options. Actually, haggis isn't. Haggis is very. I mean, for Scottish food, I'm going to say haggis is pretty high on the healthy list. When I think of my late nights in Scotland. Haggis that I was eating. These guys are making cheesesteaks. It's not Philadelphia, but it looks pretty good. Brazil representing. Dumb it is, guys, is that look at this park, right? And could you imagine back in 1867? that this is where the park one day would be attracting the most number of people, was to a giant food stall place. These are really cool. Look at these. So neat. Yum. All right, so we got pizza, we got Japanese fries over here, park barbecue. I've been seeing a lot of delicious food coming out of that. Lorraine writes, the food looks delicious. Do wish more people had masks on. Yeah, well, I mean, first and foremost, just to be clear, I of course have my mask right here. I don't have it on right now, but I'm also outside. And the other thing I'd say is most people here are eating or drinking something. But no, you're right, Lorraine. People could be doing a better job with masks. Gosh, if people aren't exhausted from the whole question, though, aren't they? Right. So we're heading north, guys, and for the next bit of time, we're not going to have the same sort of crowds. We're going to be getting a feeling of what this park looks like when it's a little bit less busy than over here at Smorgasburg. And we're hopefully going to make our way over first to the Prospect Park Boathouse. Then we're going to head over to the Carousel, and then make our way up through and past the long meadow. Maybe see a couple of tunnels and archways until eventually we make our way back to the grand entrance. Grand, already in 1867, when Frederick Law Olmsted and Calvert Vaux designed the park, but it got a lot more grand by the end of the century, because as we came up to the 30-year anniversary of the Civil War, which ended in 1865, so we're looking at kind of like, 1890s, there's a move to make the entrance into the park even more fantastic and to change the entrance space of the park from being just called the Plaza to being called the Grand Army Plaza, named after the after and for the Grand Army of the Republic. And by the Grand Army of the Republic, we're talking about the Union Army of the Republic. Where were the Bratwurst? It's a good question, Michaela, because Bratwurst just strikes me as a perfectly obvious thing to put in a park, like in a food stall area. It's just like, how could you not have figured that one out in a way? All right, so here we go. Good start, Chris. Went completely the wrong direction right out of Smorgasburg. I needed to go this way. Just goes to show that I'm a little disoriented. Let's see, actually, if I can't get down to the boathouse in this direction. 585 acres, folks. 585 acres. Split into three main sections. All right, split into those three main sections. You have the watery part, if you will, which we are actually pretty close to right now. The watery part, can I get down this way? Is it gonna let me? Let's see if this takes me somewhere that I want to go. The watery part in the south of Prospect Park it was an old reservoir, actually, and designed with that in mind. The water is the low water, and when this park was being built out, shortly after Central Park has already had about a decade of work behind it, and also it's right around the time when New York City, Manhattan Island, will get the Croton River aqueduct heading down from Croton River, and the Croton River Dam about 41 miles to the north of us. And that will move water at a rate of about 1.9 miles an hour down from Croton into first Central Park, where there's a receiving reservoir, or actually predates Central Park, and then the distribution center over where Bryant Park will eventually be, or where the New York Public Library will be. And they also end up having a large section of water here in the low, the reservoir for Brooklyn. Ross, sorry about that, Zach, you asked me, can you show us the chocolate river? Can't do that. Is this Africa? It is not. Does Brooklyn have its own mayor and make its own by the mayor of New York City? That's a great question. And very much its own. The early 18 unite together. I'm showing a little bit. Apologize for that, guys. I do my best to return to stability as quickly as possible. Yep, it looks like I'm stable again. Sorry about the brief lag there. Hopefully we will fight it off and continue to have good signal. Although we are surrounded by all this lush greenness, we are also in the middle of Brooklyn, like very much so. So there should be towers holding us together for our walk, and I feel confident about that. So Ross, Brooklyn. Today, however, once the Brooklyn Bridge is built, really allowing for the uniting of Brooklyn and New York, like Manhattan together, that's the direction that we end up going. It becomes one big city with 5 different boroughs that unite together. Before that, by the end of the 1800s, Brooklyn, remember, with all the immigration that is coming in through Ellis Island, namely first all those Irish immigrants, and then later, also German immigrants, and then Italian and Eastern European immigrants, Brooklyn is swelling in size. So that Brooklyn actually starts to challenge New York, never to be the biggest city, but it's the 3rd biggest city in the country by the late 1800s. So when New York and Brooklyn unite together to become one city, along with the other boroughs, Queens, the Bronx, of course Staten Island, then New York City becomes, at that time, I believe, it becomes the most populous city in the world. Certainly not the case any longer, but I think that at that time it was. Over here we can see the public bathrooms, which are very nice. And hopefully I'm about to come around the back side of the carousel. Michelle, thank you for the message. There's been some lagging. Hopefully we're going to be able to avoid the rest of that lagging as we go. Now, looking out over in this direction, at the end of this little road, you see Flatbush Avenue. And the reason why that's kind of important is because Flatbush Avenue predates this park, in fact, and it's this major thoroughfare that cuts through Brooklyn. And originally, when the park was being designed or thought up to develop the park, what you have is an architect designer who's called on to help develop the space, and his name is Egbert Wiele, Viele. Well, I don't have to tell Michaela that Viele spells viele, right, which means much or many in German. And Egbert, who is the original designer of what would hopefully become Prospect Park, which was being pushed for largely by a guy's name. Gotta look at my notes. Laugh at me if you want. I swear to gosh, I just cannot. Stranahan. Stranahan. Gosh darn it. I keep forgetting this gentleman's name. James Samuel Thomas Stranahan. And Stranahan, who moves to Brooklyn in 1840, he's made his money already as a logger up in like mid-state New York. Lumber was his first thing. Takes that, he rolls it in to his next business, moves to Newark, and he starts building railroads. Okay, and then moves to Brooklyn in 1840, and he starts buying up real estate. He's also a property developer, and he knows that if he can build a park, like they're planning to build, it predates Central Park, but planning to build in New York. There's already talk about the New York parks, that he can increase the value of all the land around where he's bought real estate by having this park there. Now, this area around us right now, Prospect Park, in Brooklyn in the mid-1800s, this was not a poor area. This was a wealthy area, in fact. Mansions, estates, and so the park wasn't really built for everyday person like Fort Greene Park, which we visited yesterday, which was really kind of for Little Dublin, like this poor Irish community that was in Fort Greene. And Walt Whitman had been calling for that, and the Brooklyn Eagle, the newspaper of the time, his newspaper at the time that he was the editor of, was the major newspaper of Brooklyn. And this park was built for different reasons. And Stranahan, it's kind of like, he's developing the park. He believes in the park for sure. He's actually one of the big supporters of building the Brooklyn Bridge eventually, a couple decades later. But he gets Egbert Fila, to start to develop the park concept and answer the question of what are we going to do about the fact that Flatbush Avenue runs right through the area of park that we've secured, that we've bought up. And luckily, Egbert puts forth his plan in 1861, in the beginning of the year, but by the middle of the year, what do you have in 1861? You've got the Civil War, right? 1861 to 65. So this means that Egbert's plan never gets realized. You can't finish it, okay? The war gets in the way. And then luckily, by the end of the war, Stranahan, who's not really so sure about Vila's plan and like whether it makes sense or not, he goes to his buddy, Calvert Vaux, because he's a wealthy developer. He knows Calvert Vaux. He's one of the most famous architects in the country, or certainly in New York at that time. And he goes to Vaux and he says, what do you think about Vila's plans? And Vaux says, no friggin' way. This is not what you're gonna do. I'm gonna tell you what we're gonna do. And I'm gonna tell you what Vaux says in just one second. But first, let me just show you where we are. Because we are outside of this great carousel. And this historic, beautiful space we don't just have horses. As you can see, we also have lions in here. There are dragons in here. This carousel is certainly one of the park's most popular attractions. And you've got 53 horses, as well as the lion. There's a giraffe in here somewhere. We've got a deer, and we also have 2 dragons who are pulling a cart. Let's see if we can't find those. Diana, sorry for not mentioning them before. Diana said to us guys over on YouTube, my dad lived on Flatbush Avenue for many years. How about that? There you go. Flatbush Ave, it's just to the east of me right now. Those dragons right there, pulling the little cart. Anyway, this was carved in 1912 by Charles Carmel, who was one of the most foremost carousel designers of his time. Although it went into a lot of disrepair, and it wasn't until really 1990 that this carousel is restored to much of its former glory. And actually, 1990 is when that starts, but there's subsequent donations and improvement money in 2020, which will bring this back to its true glory. In fact, one of the really cool things about this carousel is that it is one of the very few carousels in the US which is wheelchair accessible. How about that? All right, let me just quickly orient myself again. Make sure that I'm heading in the right direction for you guys. And I am. Let's go this way. Over? Oh, really quick. Let's look at one thing over here, and then we're going to go that way. Because I'm going to show you the area of property that as they were solving, so Vox says, look, he says, Shanahan, don't do this Egbert Fila plan. I want to get involved again. Thank you, Ross. That Jane's carousel, Jane Roebling, or that, yeah, the carousel there by next to the Brooklyn Bridge. Yeah, that was a cool one from the other day that we went and saw. So Vox says, look, I want in, I'm going to be part of this, and we got to get my buddy Olmsted back involved. Now, Olmsted in 1863 was so frustrated with the process of building Central Park, which he'd been doing for like years and years at that point, that he says, I'm getting as far away from New York as I can. And he moves out to, in 1853, in the middle of the, 1863, in the middle of the Civil War, he moves out to California and starts working on some projects there. He invests in a mine, which goes belly up, it's a flop, and he starts corresponding with Calvert Vaux. Vaux is saying, come on, Olmsted, you know, like, you're the Mork to my Mindy, you're the Abbott to my Costello, you know, you're the Laurel to my Hardy, like all I am is some like landscape developer and a designer, and you're the, you know, the luminary, you're the genius. And eventually he's able to like rope Olmsted back in, and Olmsted moves back to New York to work on Prospect Park, right? He actually takes a house in Staten Island and ends up commuting on the ferry to Brooklyn, you know, every day or so to keep on working on the park. I wanted to show this to you guys really quick because this actually ends up being the most expensive part of the park to build. Because once Vox steps in and Olmsted, you know, the Batman to his Robin, shows up, they say, well, we're not going to try to solve for Flatbush Avenue and trying to build to the other side of it. We're just going to buy this property to the west and the south of the original holding, which is, you know, around Mount Prospect, if you will, which was actually the second tallest point in Brooklyn after Brooklyn Heights. They say, we're going to buy that area down to the west and the southwest. This particular homestead here, the Lefferts historic house, you know, and the property around it was actually the most expensive part that they had to buy. Because the Lefferts, who are actually an old Dutch family, they'd been here since the, you know, what was it, like the mid 1600s. And they'd had this family farm and this area of land in the family for a long time. They end up selling that land, of course, in the 1800s, so the park can go ahead. But you still have this historic space. It's under renovation right now. Otherwise, we could go in and we could take a closer look at it. But it's a great place for you to come visit in the future once it's reopened. They poured $2.5 million, I think, into the restoration of the space. And it's also worth mentioning really quick, really fast, because we're already over here. You can see that there's also an entrance over here to the Prospect Park Zoo. Guys, remember the zoo that we went to? And we weren't able to see many of the animals that we'd hoped would be in there because the Prospect Park Zoo turns out to be quite small. That's another entrance to it. But we were there with my cousin, my sister, and my nephew not too long ago, because that's also in Prospect Park. Prospect Park has so much going on because it is that big, right? Okay, Olmsted, Vox, they're building the park. They're making it come along. They've got big ideas, right? Because they want to make this park everything that they couldn't actually do at Central Park. Vox and Olmsted are hugely into this idea of like natural wonder and surprises. Think English garden, if you will, rather than French garden. Versailles, manicured, all laid out, English garden. Oh, I came around a bend. Look at that, a castle. Crazy. And then wind down the bend. Oh, I'm closer to the castle. I would never have guessed I was walking in that direction. Easy to get lost in the English garden. Trust me, it's true. So here in the wilds of Prospect Park, Olmsted and Vox are going to be able to start to realize some of their dreams. And we're going to see those dreams repeated in other places in New York. For instance, when we are up on Riverside Drive, in Riverside Park, that's where they prove the concept that they test here of drives. That rather than just having paths through the park that people can ride on their carriages, you'll surround the park, you'll border the park with Ocean Drive and other drives, parkways that people can ride along. And rather than just going through the park, they can go kind of around the park and still enjoy the wonder and the beauty of it. And Riverside Drive definitely does that and really pulls that through. Let me just make sure. Yeah, let's take this little path here. Or can we take this little path here? Let's try going this way. They really bring into play here. Well, they more wild park that they wanted. Thousands of the park to make it feel like barely tamed. And that's the second big part of this park, is the forest, the Craggly hills, kind of a complement to the water sections, the pond, which was also the reservoir, also where the boathouse will go. We actually couldn't see the boathouse just now because it was covered in trees, and I took a path kind of down the other direction, but on a future tour we're going to revisit and go to the boathouse for sure. And the third section is the Long Meadow. The Long Meadow makes up the kind of the third and final section of the park, and we're going to hit the Long Meadow in a little bit. We're going to walk along it and be able to get a good view of it. Long Meadow is pretty cool because actually it's 90 acres in its own right, and the Long Meadow is the single largest contiguous meadow, if you will, or piece of land inside of a urban park. And I believe it to be that you have this one lawn in the city. Question is whether or not in Gotten has a stretch even bigger, but I don't know. Conflicting reports. I gotta check. Ross writes, is Brooklyn an expensive place to live when compared to other NYC boroughs? And Ross, it's a great question. There are parts of Brooklyn which are just as expensive as the most expensive parts of Manhattan. And then there are parts of Brooklyn which are significantly more affordable. Brooklyn is an enormous amount of and extends like far into the east. It was the reason why they thought for a while Brooklyn would be the name of New York instead of New York, and Brooklyn being a borough, but that Brooklyn would be the city and New York would be the borough, because you could expand out onto Long Island, right? In theory, New York, aka Brooklyn, could get as big as Long Island was and go all out to Montauk if you really wanted to incorporate all the way along out there. So yeah, to answer your question, Brooklyn's cheaper overall, but the median price of a house in Brooklyn, it certainly is lower than a living unit in Brooklyn is certainly more affordable than a living unit in New York. But the Bronx, that's Cheapsville. You can places to live in the Bronx if you're willing to live in the to show you guys the site of Oak, and we've got a little eagle here, a little memorial, and basically what this case we had the story of the Battle of Brooklyn, because if you guys remember, that whole idea of the Battle of Brooklyn was that Washington had set up his troops to kind of cut across these heights, right? Brooklyn Heights, and through into what today is Prospect Park, through Gowanus, and along this lowering space of the ridge, there was a path through here. and there was an old oak tree known as the Donegal oak. And they cut that tree down to barricade the path through, right? You can almost imagine if this was the direction that the Hessians were going to be coming towards Brooklyn Heights in this direction. They could lay the oak and other debris and such in your path so that it'd be harder, be an obstructed approach, be harder for those Hessian mercenaries who were employed by the British Army at the time and were involved in the Battle of Brooklyn. It'd be harder for them to be able to approach. Now, if we remember that battle, what happens is Hessians advance and then, fire, and then they retreat. And then they advance, and then each line fires, and then they pull back. Fire, pull back. This happens again and again and again. And the colonials, right, the revolutionaries, who are here hiding behind the oak and all along the line towards Brooklyn Heights, up towards Greenwood Cemetery and such, they are pretty confident that the battle is going pretty well for them, because they don't realize that this barricade, the Donegal oak, that they've felled and cut down through this space to block it, the Brits aren't planning to come this way at all anyway. Henry Clinton, one of the other generals for the Brits, has already spoken to loyalist, Tory, non-revolutionary here in the New World, and has been shown a path that he's able to bring troops around behind the fortified positions, behind the felled oak trees. And of course, that pincer move, that outflanking, will result in a forced retreat and the capture of thousands of Washington's troops, and eventually Washington's retreat, miraculous retreat across the East River to be able to escape from New York in 1776. Almost lost the whole thing here during this battle, the Battle of Long Island. So, and yeah, this is where, like a little bit like that movie Aliens. You guys remember Aliens? I'm not talking about Alien, I'm talking about Aliens, the second one, where they land on the planet and they're looking for the colonists. And Sigourney Weaver comes up with a plan to barricade the doors into, and they're like, I don't know, man, they're getting closer. And like Vasquez and Hicks and Hudson are all like, they're getting closer, man. Like, they must have found another way in. No, man, we sealed it all. We sealed it all. We closed it all down, man. And still, somehow, the aliens get in. I just want to say to Universal Studios, please don't ping me for copyright infringement there. I know it was almost exactly Aliens, but you got to give me a little bit of artistic interpretation leeway here. So, well, in the same sort of thing that happens to Sigourney Weaver and the crew of, Galactic Marines, the aliens, they get through, right? In the movie, they go down, but here they use and get around on Long Island. Jogging path to work. And we're actually of lag right now. A little bit of lag. Okay, lag is gone. That's good. Over there, in this direction, what you have is the Vale of Kashmir. The Vale of Kashmir. It's like a really gorgeous part of. So under right now. In your plan is 1867. You're not necessarily thinking, what is this section of park going to look like? Or 100 this park going to have changed, which is named after there the kids could hang out in. But 150 years of no them kind of doing the remanicuring to order, showing internet. One of the great things about great free water, delicious free water. I know I've sung the praises of New York's water before, but just to keep it in mind, you've got 11,000 people whose job it is to make sure the water of New York is delicious and safe to drink. There are 3 people in charge of making sure that bottled water is safe to drink in New York City. So 3 water testers for the bottled water, 11,000 people work to make sure the tap water is clean and safe. So you want to be safe? Drink tap water in New York. How about this, Ross? What game are these guys playing? Does not seem very American. I'm gonna say it's cricket. Do Scots play cricket? Oh. I've never really seen a Scottish national cricket team. This guy's not a very good batsman now, I think. I don't know if you could use a tennis ball for cricket. It is super unfair. I feel like you could just whack that. There you go. Bowler in. Oh, and it's a solid hit. It's a solid hit. Okay, Ross, thanks for that. I appreciate that. Right? I mean, that's it. I don't really think of Scotland as cricket. Scotland is, throwing giant logs, right? Like men's sports. No, I'm just kidding. Cricket's noble and wonderful sport as well. Hashtag Pakistan, hashtag India, hashtag Indonesia, and those kinds of countries that love their cricket. This territory right around here is disputed territory from a baseball perspective. This is, the music follows me. There's just nothing I can do about it. But Ross, no, Yankees-Mets territory here. Oh wait, this sounded so good that I thought it was coming from a speaker, like on YouTube, but it's not. This is like a live band. Right, we can listen to these guys. They are not copyrighted. You've got Yankees and Mets fans here in Brooklyn. I mean, I feel like because it was the Brooklyn Dodgers, like there's a lot of Brooklyn, I think probably Brooklyn leans Yankees. I might be wrong though. But you're gonna have both fans here. No Red Sox fans, that's for sure. These guys are lovely. I wonder if I've got a tip for them. Yeah, only 20s. Can't do it. Even those guys a buck or two, but when you only have 2 $20 bills and you work in tourism, you can't be too crazy. We're just wrapping up on the Long Meadow here. Let's take one last look at it. Very north end of what is absolutely the largest meadow or lawn inside of an inner city park anywhere in the United. I feel like it might be the world, but then again, like I said, could be that Munich's Englischer Garten beats out Prospect Park, but we're at the very end of it. And we're heading up to take a quick look at Endal Arch, which is a newly remodeled and renovated arch. One of the beautiful little surprises and architectural neatnesses of Prospect Park. And take a look as we approach it right now. There we go. This is today. Let me show it to you back in the 1800s. So does that show up for you guys? Let's see if I can't get pretty much in the same spot this photographer is standing in. Looks like he was right about here. Okay. Huh? There we go. Perfect. Yep. So you get a feeling of back in the day and today. But when we go inside of it, I'm going to take off this historic picture so you guys can see the really cool renovation work they've done. And then we're going to circle back out and up to Grand Army Plaza, where we're going to be wrapping up our tour in about 10-15 minutes or so. And we'll call it a day as we explore a little bit more of this amazing big world together. All right. And I take this off. And now let's walk through, see this great restoration that they've done in here to return this. My question is, can I go this way to get back up? I think so. I can indeed. All right. Hello. Where did this watermelon come from? Not an indigenous species to the park. Yeah, Diana. It is a big, cool meadow back there. I just love that some guys back in the day, you know, our good friend Shanahan, you know, decided I want to improve the property value of all this land that I own. I'm going to build this incredible park. Even if right now he wasn't really thinking that. Vox and Olmsted were kind of in the same mind frame. They were like, you know what, when we build this park, we don't want to just build a park, Prospect Park. We're going to build a whole integrated community around this park, in fact. And that was part of their plan. Have you guys ever heard of a neighborhood to the west of here? It's up a slope, and that's what Vox and Olmsted said. We'll build this community on the slope that leads down to the park. We'll call it Park Slope. Yeah. So Park Slope, which is a wealthy Brooklyn community directly to the west of us, on a slope leading down to this park, Prospect Park, is named that because of the park being here. And that community was built out because it was close to the park. Yeah. Oh, sorry, I'm stealing the view. Here I am, English Garden. I come out from behind a green path, and what do I show you guys? I show you me talking, where I should be showing you the view all of a sudden that comes out here. And we get this incredible grand entryway into Prospect Park. Now, the entryway was not nearly this grand when Olmsted and Vox, those great architects and landscapers who also did Central Park and also did Riverside Park, it wasn't so grand, and I'll give you a feeling of that. You know, first, you didn't have any columns or arches or anything like that here. And then by the end of the 1800s, in like 1884, you've got the columns, and you've got this this archway that's going to be built inside. And then finally, in the 90s, they start to add all of the other work that you see up above, like the statues and such. Now, to my left and my right over here, you've got these, let's say, Doric columns. Oh, no, wait, they're not Doric columns. It's a different school of Roman columning, which I can't remember. But on top of it, you've got these eagles. That's all added by Stanford White. So it was part of the making this place even more fancy and nice than it had been before. The Soldiers and Sailors Arch, which we're going to walk towards now. Why don't we pull ourselves in a little bit closer? And can just give it a little zoom. There we go. Better. Okay. It's decades after the end of the Civil War, and there's a lot of monument building which is going on, not right at the end of the Civil War, but a few decades later, certainly in the late 1800s, going into the early 1900s, and this is a great example of one of those additions. Now, when this arch will actually be built up. I think before I might have said it was as early as the 80s. It's not true. It is the 80s. It's the end of the 80s. It's 1889 that the cornerstone will be laid. And the person who actually does the commencement speech during the laying of the cornerstone of this building is none other than our good friend William Tecumseh Sherman, one of the generals of the Grand Army of the Republic, indeed, of the Union Army. Sherman was vilified by the South because of his execution of total warfare against the Confederacy during the Civil War. He, along with Ulysses S. Grant, had seen that the Confederacy was never going to surrender. That wasn't going to, they weren't going to surrender and seek terms without while also agreeing to the emancipation of the enslaved people, in the United States. Sherman enacted the total warfare of scorched earth, where basically everything of value would be burned and destroyed behind his advancing armies, so that way the Confederacy couldn't be able to use it. And also they'd see that all of the possessions were being destroyed. Michaela says it's a bit like Berlin, and what she's specifically speaking to here is the Brandenburg Gate, the Brandenburger Tor, the old royal imperial gate in and out of the city of Berlin that would take you on the road to Brandenburg. And it's not just that you have this kind of triumphal arch, but it's that you also have specifically this thing up on the top, the quadriga, as it's called, a 4-horse-drawn chariot. Now, you can see from that picture that I showed you guys before, that comes later, right? The chariot's not there to begin with. And they're going to add that in there when the time comes. There we go. And the idea here is that this goddess of victory, sometimes you'd call her Victoria, but here you call her, she's Columbia, actually, because Columbia is that spirit of the New World, right? Columbus bringing Columbia, and this land is Columbia, the New World where anything is possible. Michaela tells the joke right there about the quadriga in Berlin, because yes, indeed, in Berlin, when they added the quadriga and the goddess of victory, Victoria, on top of the Brandenburg Gate, they renamed the square that was below the quadriga. They named this the Square of Paris in Berlin. And the idea was that victory was staring down over Paris. victory over Paris, because Napoleon had stolen the quadriga off the top of the Brandenburg Gate. But listen, Michaela, we're going to tell that story when we get back to Berlin, okay? Because we're in Brooklyn right now. We can't be telling Berlin stories in Brooklyn. We're telling Brooklyn stories in Brooklyn. So, quadriga, like I was saying, Columbia up on the top, you can see these 4 horses that are drawing the chariot forward. That actually angels are there, and they are taking 2 of the horses off of the chariot. You're coming off, and you're coming off, horsey. And why is that? Because it's the end of the war, and those horses are going to be returned now to agricultural work, right? They're no longer needed. They're no longer needed in war post antebellum, after the end of the Civil War. They can return to regular life, right? These 2 horses, we're going to keep them just in case, right? Reconstruction. And then the angels that you'll see here, they're trumpeting 2 things. They're trumpeting both victory, but also emancipation, right? They're trumpeting the emancipation of enslaved people. So thank you, Quadriga, there for that bit of story. Now, let's slide over next time we can. Torsten writes, Berlin in Brooklyn. Genau. Exactly that. Can we cross? Is it our turn? Nope, not yet. We have to wait for the zebra. Oh, but while we're looking, we might as well look over here really quick. Past one of Stanford White's columns with those eagles up there. And you see this building over here, that's the Brooklyn Public Library main branch. So Ross was asking before if Brooklyn and New York share the same mayor, or if they have different mayors. And no, we all have the same mayor, but we do have different library systems. And the New York Public Library system, the main branch library, that library is not, I mean, in theory, Brooklyn has its own library system. Because it was its own city, and the whole thing. So they are disconnected libraries. Maybe they do some sharing, but at least historically they're different. All right, so we're gonna head underneath here, and remember that this. Hey, the G's over on Twitch. Thanks for joining. Always good to see you. So as we were saying, remember this monument here. This arch is to the soldiers and the sailors. Specifically, it's to the defenders of the Union, right? Which the Grand Army was. And these 2 sculptures here, which are added in. This one's added in 1890. This one's added in 1891. I want to say, are depicting patriotism, motivating the troops forward, those kind of heroic reliefs. And then here we've got the man himself, of course, Abraham Lincoln, $5 bill. He's on the penny. President through the Civil War. Go right till the end. And then over here, he's looking across at Ulysses S. Grant, whose tomb is also here in New York City. He decided to be not buried, but entombed at Grant's tomb here in New York, because here you go, G's, little of the pattern for you of the roof above, so you can get a feeling for it. Ulysses S. Grant decided to be entombed here in New York rather than be buried at Arlington National Cemetery like other war heroes would have been, because the man loved his wife and she could not be buried next to him in Arlington Cemetery. So he says, nope. He spends the last years of his life here in New York, and he asks for his tomb to be here, where he can be entombed, enshrined with the missus. So these are all parts of the additions that are added at the end of the 1800s. There's a couple other additions over here as well, which we might as well take a quick look at, that are newer in time. And then we're going to wrap up, because that was 15 minutes. We've made it to Grand Army Plaza. We've got a fountain in front of us, Bailey Fountain. Not the original fountain that was here. This fountain actually isn't built until, well, later, until the late 1920s, 1930s. Named after Frank Bailey, a Brooklyn-based financier who dies in 1953. Well, it does really raise the question. Ah, yes, and Bailey donates the money in the 1920s for there to be the construction of a new fountain here for $125,000. Oops, sorry about that. Oh, that's a Boston hat. Wouldn't have guessed it. That guy was wearing a Boston Red Sox hat. Dangerous for him. So there was another fountain here before this, which is actually an electric pump fountain, but it was dismantled in 1915 in order to allow for subway lines to pass beneath this plaza. And it's this fountain, ah yes, 1929, like I thought I remembered, is when this gorgeous fountain is added here. Kind of setting up the grand approach to what was originally Frederick Law Olmsted and Calvert Vaux's Prospect Park. And we've only seen a tiny little bit of Prospect Park today because we've covered maybe 50 acres. I mean, not really, right? But I mean, it's 585 acres. It's a massive space. Last one worth just quickly saying goodbye to here. Great president. We talked about Abraham Lincoln just a second ago, and we saw his relief sculpture. And here we have a bust of John Fitzgerald Kennedy. Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. And JFK, 35th President of the United States, was also in his own way a huge supporter of, despite being a Democrat, not a Blue Dog or Dixie Democrat, but probably Democrat. He was also a supporter of the war efforts, and we learned a little bit about JFK when we were down in Charleston, if you guys remember, because he was stationed down in Charleston, South Carolina, before his whole boating escapades. He had that fling with the Norwegian model Miss Norway spy Nazi sympathizer before he would be then transferred out. The FBI were watching. Anyway, Kennedy. Here he is. One last look. All right. Well, these guys are doing a little bit of a video over here. Get a little bit closer. Walk one last. Find a nice place for us to say goodbye. And oh, hi, Rebecca Stewart. Way to join right at the end, huh? Way to get here right for the finale. Well, now that Rebecca Stewart's joined, we can finally stop. We've been waiting for her this whole time. There she is. Bar, thank you. Hey, David Oribe, sorry, you wrote something here. I can't quite see. It says wash hands, but thank you, man. Sorry for not saying hi before. Bar, I'm glad you like the park. It's waiting for you. Hopefully you'll get yourself over, and Brooklyn will be here. Rebecca Stewart makes a very fine and fair comment. Chris, I know I need notice before I can come to these live streams. That's on me, because I should be posting these ahead of time and letting you guys know that they're coming. I'm just still trying to get far enough ahead of my schedule that I know what my schedule is. And things are a little impromptu right now, but thank you for joining anyway, even at the very end. Diana, you're very, very welcome. Ross, I'm going to be following up with you very shortly about the other thing we're talking about. And the G's, thanks for being over there on Twitch, man. Really appreciate it. Always great. Very cool to have you. And glad that you could join. To all the rest of you, Michelle, Rebecca, who Who else do we have along with us on this wild trip right now? Jenny, Eric, thank you guys for Mila. Thanks for joining along and giving me a little bit of your Sunday. If you're watching this as a video on demand, welcome. I'll be live streaming pretty much every day, I think, something in Brooklyn or in Long Island over the next week. It's gonna be what I'm aiming for, but I will spend a little bit of time today putting a few of those events in the calendar so that Miss Stewart can find us, and all the rest of you guys can have a little bit of notice. I still really appreciate you jumping on and just hanging out for an hour. And yeah, well, this is what Brooklyn today, right now, on August 1st. Is it August 1st? This is what it looks like at August 1st, from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You've taken a look, and I will say goodbye. Will be more of Europe, asks Bar. Yes, I'm waiting for, so our company is broken into different divisions, and the operations team has promised to take over organizing live streaming now that we're up and running in different cities. But our CEO and COO have not yet done it. But they said they would, so I trust them to do it. Otherwise, I'll be in Europe in September myself, and then we'll make sure it happens. But, or I'll, if you're a guide in Europe and you're working with Sandeman's New Europe, and you don't know that we're looking for you to live stream right now, just reach out to me directly if you haven't gotten the message, because we want to show more of Europe. We want to show more of a lot of places and get it going. So please, let's do it. We'll be in Russia very soon. We're going to be in St. Petersburg in a week or in 2 weeks, depending upon how our test goes. That'll be in English, so that'll be good. But Bar, I'm fighting for it. I really want it to happen. So, all right, guys. Mwah. Ciao. Goodbye from the Bailey Fountain here in Prospect Park at the Grand Army Plaza. And goodbye from Long Island and from Brooklyn, New York.